I'm Dr. Roger Struby, a retired medical director from various HMO operations, happily retired here in Florida for the past 20 years. This presentation is about how to convert a CPAP machine used for sleep apnea into a power-operated respirator. First thing we have to do is understand various types of respirators. All face masks, including the ones that are used with the big canisters for organic materials, painting, fiberglass, etc., use human lung power to suck air through the filter. The thing about these types of respirators is that they're really not supercharging your lungs. They're just providing air and possibly oxygen to you at sea level temperature if you happen to be at sea level. So there's the standard respirator. Then there is a CPAP machine. I happen to have one of these because I have a sleep apnea. Therefore, my insurance company, Medicare, provided me with a CPAP machine. This happens to be a Resmed 10, which is a fairly high performance machine. The thing to understand about these machines and standard respirators is that these machines with an occlusive face mask seal the nose and the mouth. And since they're operating at pressure, they tend to pressurize the lungs. Not so much that you would end up with a pneumothorax or blow a lung out, only a couple extra millimeters of mercury, but it is supercharged, so oxygen is going to have a better chance of getting through lungs that are thickened up by COVID virus. So the machine itself operating will be helpful for people that have the symptoms of COVID-19. The trick was, how do you attach an oxygen supply to the respirator to increase the oxygen level? Because if partial pressure of oxygen can go up, plus you're pressurizing the lungs, you will get more oxygen into your bloodstream for your tissues. When you think about it, having COVID-19 and thickened lung and stiff lungs is sort of like going to the mountaintop at Everest. You get into the kill zone. So as your oxygen levels drop, your body slowly is dying. So in summary, type of respirators available are standard masks, whether a paper mask, N95 mask, or canister mask, a powered air purifying respirator, which is basically a power-driven unit that filters air and supplies you with air at sea level or at whatever pressure you're at. The CPAP machine is essentially a ventilator, but it is a continuous positive pressure device, which means by feeding the air through a line with a face mask that seals the upper respiratory system, you're actually pressurizing the lungs. Then the question is, how do you add oxygen to that machine? So the subject of this presentation is going to be how you add oxygen to your CPAP machine. Now, there's another generation, much more complex set of machines for breathing, and they're essentially the ventilators. And ventilators are simple emergency ventilators for field operation, and they are devices that actually breathe for the patient. In most cases, they use intubation. They put a tube down the windpipe, and they pressurize the lungs, and the air comes out, and they pressurize the lungs. And the operator can set the timing of that, set how much pressure goes in, add oxygen to it, etc. So what we're talking about here is a simple modification to change your CPAP machine into an oxygen delivering ventilator, positive pressure oxygen delivering ventilator. And my particular cost for all of this was somewhere around $17, mainly because I do have a man cave close to here where I have all the tools known to mankind and a lot of stuff on the shelf that can be used for cobbling together something like this. So what do I need to convert my external mini hyperbaric chamber for conversion into a oxygen delivery system? It's really kind of simple. All you need is a couple of parts. The only part you actually need from online services would be the pressure line adapter that goes between the face mask and the CPAP input line supplying oxygen up here. Now, we want to make sure that we can measure the flow of the oxygen and that we humidify the oxygen. The air line coming in will be humidified by the CPAP machine. This is dry, it's not a big deal, but it would be good to be able to measure it and also humidify it. So in my warehouse, I did have a Burns-O-Matic oxygen bottle for my brazing kit, and I had a couple old G2 bottles from trying to stay hydrated while I'm working over there on youth program boats. So as you can see, there's oxygen feed into the bottom of the bottle. I also had a pickup tube with a little filter end on it from a spray painting disposable system. So this will allow smaller bubbles to come out of the bottom and, in theory, do a little cleanup of any contaminants in this. These things are disposable bottles. Essentially, they have the same thing as medical grade O2 in them, and care and custody of the bottles is not an issue because they're made, they're charged, they're disposed of after they're finished. The output line is the top, so with distilled water in it, the bubbles come up, humidify the oxygen, and flow into the oxygen tube. So it's public health. It's public health and public administration that have really increased our lifespan. It's our pure water system. It's our handling of sewage. It's our public health system that provides immunizations, prenatal care to mothers, postnatal care to the kids. That's the basis for our increase in lifespan. Physicians in general in the healthcare system have a marginal increase in improvement in that. And in our healthcare system, we happen to be number 8 out of the 8 top industrialized world in all measures of the healthcare system taking care of the population. I don't have any delusions about healthcare. We really don't have a right to healthcare. Rights are given to us by our government. The universe is really out to get us, so our healthcare system should do as much as it can to keep us alive as long as possible, and hopefully paying taxes. That's the business side of universal healthcare. The reality is that we are already paying for universal healthcare. If you are not insured or underinsured, you're still going to get healthcare. You're going to show up in the ER and have very efficient, high-cost healthcare delivery. And hospitals don't have money trees in their yards. They transfer those costs, they shift those costs to people who pay. And what's the reality of people who pay now? At least 65% of the population is already on some sort of government healthcare system, whether it's our politicians, our fire, our police, Medicare, Medicaid, Indian Health Service. This comprises about 65% of the population. So we're really dealing with about 35% of the population. Of the 35% that has that high-cost health care, there's a good portion that are uninsured. Those people transfer all their costs to the insured population because the government population negotiates fees. The Army doesn't pay the same fees, the Armed Forces don't pay the same fees for drugs that your private healthcare insurance company pays. Obviously, because when they negotiated the Accountable and Affordable Health Care Act, they weren't allowed to negotiate fees. They banned Medicare from negotiating fees. So if we could just go to the formulary used by the Armed Forces, we'd cut billions of dollars out of our drug costs. Those are the kind of things that have to be assessed when we reform the system. So because of that debacle, I spent 28 months of my life that I'll never have back writing my book. So if you are interested in how to fix our healthcare system, and I assume since you picked up this video you have some idea that you'd like to have it fixed, please pick up a copy of my book. Read it. Get back to me. Tell me what you think. I'll be waiting for your contact and your feedback.